Okay, so this is part 3 of our series on how to build a vacation day request system in Smartsheet. So in previous videos, we built an employee information sheet where we keep track of information about our employees, including how many vacation days they are allotted and how many vacation days they have remaining, using this nested if function that looks at how many years they've been with the company in order to get their days allotted. Okay? And then we also created a vacation day requests sheet that is populated by this web form. So this is how employees enter their vacation day requests. Those get added to this sheet, and then back in employee information, we sum up those for each employee by using a cross-sheet reference, okay? So now what we want to add is an approval process. We want supervisors to be able to approve vacation day requests before those days get counted. The first thing we need is the supervisor. Okay, so that'll be an employee information. Let me add a new column for supervisor, and this is going to be a contact list type. You need to use this type of list in order for people to get approval notices and notifications from Smartsheet, okay? We're also going to need employee email because we want them to get a confirmation after the supervisor has approved or declined. So contact list for this one as well. Okay, so the supervisors in my organization already have Smartsheet accounts. When I start typing, that's just going to autofill. So Ella's supervisor is me, Reddington's is Ella. And same thing for this, their emails are already in our Smartsheet account, so they're going to autofill too. Okay, Ella's email is Ella, and Reddington's is Reddington. Okay, let me expand these so we can see what we're doing. Shrink this down. Okay, that looks good. Let me hit save. Now we go back to vacation day requests because this is where we're going to build our automation. Okay, so we need to get for each employee who submits a new request, we need their supervisor name and we need their email. To do this, we need to have Smartsheet look back to the employee information sheet in order to get that information, okay? So I'm gonna add supervisor here as well, and this will be contact list, okay? And then I'm also going to add employee email, contact list as well. Okay, so we have two options for pulling in supervisor. We could do VLOOKUP, which you may be familiar with from Excel or from Smartsheet or from other spreadsheet applications. I'll run through a demo of how to build that, but then ultimately we're going to be using a combination of two other functions, index and match. It can be a little more difficult to wrap your mind around how those work. It is for me anyway, but there are some really big advantages of using index match instead of VLOOKUP. But for now, let's just see how VLOOKUP works, okay? So I'm going to equals sign V, pulls up VLOOKUP, okay? Now the first thing we want to give it is the search value. What is Smartsheet looking for in order to give us our ultimate result? Well, it's looking for the employee name, okay? Put a comma for the next argument. Where is it looking? That's the lookup table. We're referencing another sheet, and we are using employee name, hold down Shift, and click supervisor to get this whole table, okay? I'm not gonna name this right now because we're not gonna be using it ultimately. All right, insert reference. Okay, now we need to go to that last part and add the column number. Okay, so Smartsheet is looking at this table, but it wants to know, all right, I found a match in this table, so what do you want me to give you? I want you to give me the information that is in the second column of this table. Okay, if we were doing employee email, we would have selected all of this, but we would put column 3 as the return value. Okay, so I'm going to hit cancel. And then I'm going to put a 2 and a 0. We want it to give us an exact match. Okay, great. So that works. Let me drag it down. Perfect. Hit save. Okay, but what happens in the future if I decide that I want to have, let's say, title as the next column here? Okay, so, title is Chief Feline Officer and Senior Associate. Okay, great. But going back to our other sheet, when I refresh, ruh-roh, right? Because now in column 2 from our table, it's just title. So that's a little annoying. Maybe not that big of a deal, but I don't want to have to mess around with that. Okay, so let me get rid of this. Okay, and I'm going to remove this formula. Okay, let's do the same thing with index match, all right? So we do index, and for range, this is going to be the column from which we want to get that final information, all right? So that is supervisor. Let's open this up, select supervisor. Let's name it supervisor. Name already in use on this sheet. Okay, supervisor lookup. Okay, and then we put in a comma, and then instead of row index, here's where we're putting our match function, okay? So search value, what do we want it to match? We want it to match employee name. Where do we want it to look? We want it to look under employee name on this sheet. Okay. That was already working, but I want to add one more thing, which is that optional argument of the search type. Okay, let's do 0 again. We want an exact match. Okay. Great, that works. Let's drag her down. Perfect. Okay, so why is this better? Well, in addition to not having to worry about counting columns or changing around the columns from our source sheet, Smartsheet has a cap on the number of references you can have in your sheets. I think it's 250,000. It's a lot, but we always want to be mindful of growth, right? We want to make sure that in the future, we're not going to have to worry about hitting that cap any sooner than we have to be. Now, if our reference table is just 2 columns, like it was here, okay, we're not really saving ourselves anything, but if we were to do employee email, where we want it to return something from this column based on information in this column, that means that we're going to have to select an unnecessary column. We don't need to include this, but for VLOOKUP to work, we do have to. There are some other things as well, like sorting and being able to look left or right. For instance, the reference table of employee name and supervisor only works if the search column, employee name, is to the left of the result column, supervisor. Okay, so if I wanted to do the reverse and I wanted to find, hey, whom does each supervisor supervise? I couldn't do that if the columns are in this order. But I think the biggest advantage in Smartsheet in particular is that you save yourself unnecessary references. Okay, so let's go back to vacation day requests and let's do another index match. All right, so index, what do we want to get? We want to get employee email, okay, and then let's do our search. So that's match. Search type, search value, Reddington, okay. Where do you find that? You find that here. Oh, it's still called supervisor table from before. Okay, employee name. It's gonna get mad at me? No, okay, good. And put in that last 0 for the search type. Okay, expand this out, drag it down. Perfect, so that's great. Reddington's email is Reddington, Ella's is Ella. Now you may be thinking, this information is exactly the same as this information. Why not just make employee name a contact list type? Well, first of all, good for you. That's an excellent question. Pat on the back. But primary columns have some restrictions. So for your primary column, it has to be either text or number type. You could use a function in here, but you can't do any other column type. So you can't make it a date, and you can't make it a contact list or a drop-down list or anything other than text number, okay? So let me hit save, and then we will build out our automation. Okay, so go to automation, and then set up an approval workflow. Okay, so let's call this vacation day approval. All right, what do we want the trigger to be? We want the trigger to be when new rows are added. Smartsheet wants us to narrow this down. We don't need to, so I'm just gonna say when employee name is any value. Okay, we want this to run as soon as a new row is added. We don't wanna wait. Add a condition. We didn't need our first condition, so definitely not going to add another. Okay, and then where do we want those approval requests to go? Well, by default, this is set to send to specific people, where you could enter a name from your contact list or an email address. That would mean that every single row is going to go to the same person. We want it to be variable. We only want it to go to the supervisor of the employee in the new row. So that is send to contacts in a cell. So now we need to select a contact field. And we only have two in our sheet. We have supervisor and employee email. We're doing supervisor. Now, when you set this up for the first time, you may see a little note pop up here about permissions. I have already changed my permissions for automation from the default settings, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment because you likely will need to do that as well. Okay, next step. Where do we want to save the supervisor's response? Well, let's do it in a new column that Smartsheet's going to create for us called Supervisor Approval. We can customize the message that goes out to the supervisor, but it's pretty self-explanatory, so I'm just going to leave that as is. What do we want to happen if it is approved? Well, let's send an email to the employee. Okay, so alert someone. Send to specific people. Nope, we want it to be variable. Send to contacts in a cell. Select contact field, employee email. And for this, sure, I will add a custom message. So your vacation day request has been approved. Okay. Now if declined, same thing. Alert the employee email. Okay, customized message. Your vacation day request has been declined. Please contact your supervisor with any questions. Okay, I'm gonna hit save. All right, now if I go to, where is it? Oh, up here. Okay, here is where you can change your automation permissions. By default, it will be restricted. Okay, so if I change this and I go back to this workflow, I'll show you that notification. All right, see this here? Some recipients may not get notified. That's because in this setting, only users shared to this sheet will be able to get those notifications. And right now, none of these users have shared the sheet. It's private to me. And while we will be granting supervisors access to this sheet, we won't be granting access to the employees. Okay, so we do need this to be different. We need it to be, let's see, limited could work because all of the employees do have an account in my organization. But for now, I'm just gonna put this as unrestricted in case we decide to add employees and don't also give them Smartsheet accounts, okay? This is also what you want to do if you end up using notifications in another app. Smartsheet has native integration with Microsoft Teams and Slack. So instead of an email, maybe you want your employees to get their notifications in Slack, in which case you would need to open this up to unrestricted, okay? All right, now close this. Now, if I scroll to the right, you'll see that we have a new column for supervisor approval. This is where the responses will go from the supervisor. When a new row is added, it will be set to submitted, and then depending on the response, it will go to either approved or declined. Okay, so let's run a test. Let's open up our form, and let's say Ella Schumacher wants to take off, let's say the 18th through the 20th. Okay, no adjustments there. This was something we had added before to account for any days during a vacation that the office might be closed. Okay, submit. All right, let's go back to our vacation day requests sheet. Okay, refresh to see the new changes. Great, and there is the new row that we just created using the form. Okay, let me scroll to the right. There you see submitted. Now I got an email alerting me to this new approval request, but I also got a Smartsheet notification, this little bell. Okay, so let's click on that. All right, approval request for vacation days from Ella Schumacher. Let's open this up. Okay, let's see, the dates look fine. 3 days out, okay, that's fine. Why don't I add a little comment for her? Have fun. Okay, approve. There we go. I will close out my notifications pane here and then hit refresh. Okay, and now the status is approved. Our automation is working, so now we can take this approval status into account when calculating our days out, okay? And we do our days out calculation back on employee information. Okay, I'm going to clear out the existing function here, which was a sum if, so it only added up the days out for each employee, okay? Because I'm going to need to add another if, we are going to do sum ifs, right? Because now we have two different criteria. We want to add up the vacation days from the requests sheet only if the employee name is the same as in this row, or the same as in this row, and only if those requests have been approved. Okay, so for this, we use some ifs. Okay? The first argument is the range that we want to sum, and that is on another sheet. It is on vacation day requests, and it is days out. Okay? Then the criterion range. So our first criterion is going to be the employee name. Where do we want it to look for the employee name? Well, we want it to look for it back here under employee name. Okay, and the specific criterion that it's looking for is employee name here. All right, now we're going to do this again, but with the approval status. Okay, so we're going to reference another sheet, and now it needs to look at supervisor approval. Call this approval. Insert the reference. What is it looking for? We only want it to add up approved. Okay, enter. All right, let me drag this down. Okay, I'm going to hit save and then refresh. Okay, and there we go. Ella has had 3 days approved. Reddington, while he has submitted several days, none of them have been approved yet. So let's change that and make sure our function here is working well. Okay, here were Ella's 3 days that were approved. Now let's go to Reddington's days. Let's see, those first 2 were his, and those were 6 days. So let's change both of these to approved. All right, hit save. Go back and refresh. That's fine. I didn't actually, okay, there we go. Refresh. I didn't make any changes, but hit save anyway. Okay, there we go. So that is working. The last thing I want to do is pull in the data from vacation days remaining into the vacation day requests sheet. Because when a supervisor receives an approval request, I want them to be able to also see how many days remaining that employee has, because that information will be very helpful when they are deciding whether or not to approve or decline. Okay, let me shrink these down, get a little more space. Okay, so the last column is going to be vacation days remaining. All right, and then we're just going to use another index match to pull this from the other sheet. All right, so index, what do we want? We want vacation days remaining. Okay, that's here. Vacation days remaining. Insert reference. Okay, what are we matching? We are matching employee name and the range of employee name. Okay, and search type 0, exact match. Okay, great. Let's pull this down. Okay, hit save. All right, 6 days for Reddington, 18 days for Ella. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Okay, so now when we send out a new request, that data is going to be shown to the supervisor. Okay, so let's open up our form. Just do preview. Okay, let's do Reddington, Schumacher, vacation start, 7th to the 8th, no adjustments, submit. Okay, now let's open up Ella's email. All right, so first you'll see her confirmation from earlier after I approved her vacation day requests. Okay, so your vacation day request has been approved. All right, now this is the new notification that she has a pending approval request for Reddington. Okay, now here is the information, and we can see he's requesting 2 days out. These are the days, and he has 6 vacation days remaining, not including these. Okay, so let me click View Request. All right, now you'll see Ella didn't even have to log into Smartsheet in order to approve this. In fact, she wouldn't even have to have a Smartsheet account. Very convenient. Okay, let's approve. All right. Close this out, close this out, close. Okay, let's refresh. New request from Reddington, approved, and now he has 4 days remaining. But you know, it would be great if Reddington could see how many days he has remaining before even submitting a form. Well, we can do that by making him a dashboard. And that is coming up in the next video.